Hello fabulous DIYers, it's Daniela Tabois here, and in this episode, I'm going to show you how to sew this Keyhole Monokini Swimsuit. So if you're interested, let's begin. So here I'm going to be working with 1 yard of nylon spandex. This is for swimwear. Also, I'm going to be using 1 yard of this lightweight interlock stretch lining. And I will be using a 1/4 inch elastic. And lastly, I'm going to use this ring. Now this ring looks like a ring that they use for bags, but I'm going to use it for my swimsuit as it will be easier for me to install because of this opening that it has. All the items that I'm using in this video will be down in the description box. So I'm working with the swimsuit pattern that I created for the mesh one-piece bathing suit. I did that bathing suit 2 years ago. I will link the video up and above and down in the description box for you to go ahead and find it and create this pattern for yourself. Now my patterns are already adjusted to how I want it to look and shape, so you can do the same for your own sloper or pattern. And if you are working with commercial pattern, you can do the same thing with the techniques that I'm showing you in this video. So here I'm going to recopy my patterns once again because I like to keep my originals and work with new patterns. Here's the front portion of the swimsuit. I came down 4 inches from the side seam without the seam allowance included, and then I marked there. Now at the bottom of the swimsuit, I came up 2.5 inches without seam allowance and marked there. From there, I came down 6 inches from the center front of the swimsuit and marked there. With my hip curve ruler, I decided to curve from that point to the first point that I created at the side seam for the upper part of the swimsuit. And then from that same center front point, I'm going to also curve it down to the second point that I drew to create the bottom portion of the swimsuit at the front. Before I cut it out, I went ahead and perfected the line at the bottom to make it more deeper because I want it to be a more open monokini at that area. Now it's up to you to do whatever you feel that is comfortable for you. Once I had everything perfected, I went ahead and cut it out. And these are what the pieces look like. So I'm going to remove that center part of the swimsuit, and this is the front portion of the swimsuit. Now I'm just going to go ahead and draw my grain line just for me to indicate where I need to match up at the fabric, and then write the front portion of the swimsuit just to mark the pattern. Now at that curve where I cut out, I have to put in a 1/2 inch seam allowance. That is for when I'm going to install my elastic, and I'm going to tape it to some scrap pattern paper to add the 1/2 inch seam allowance. So here I'm just going to take my straight ruler and draw in my 1/2 inch seam allowance. Now for the top portion of the swimsuit, I'm going to be doing a slash method. I want this portion of the swimsuit to have ruching, and I have to create that with the slashes. So here I'm just going to go really diagonally from the armhole, shoulder, and neckline, and then I'm going to slash into the pattern. So this is basically what it looks like when you see it up close. And I'm going to cut it through, not making sure that I don't cut through the pattern, just cut to the edge where it's going to allow me to spread the pattern. So here it is all open and spread. And here I recommend you to not spread it as wide, because if your ring is not big, it will be hard for it to gather up when it's time for you to install it. So here I'm going to take a piece of brown paper so you can better see when I spread the pattern. I'm going to spread it out on this brown paper, not so wide, but enough for me to create the ruching. And then I'm going to tape it down. And then as you can see at the bottom is already having some seam allowance. I don't need to add any more, and I'm going to cut it out. So now it's time for me to draw the back, and here I did this first before the front. That's why you see the the pattern pieces already cut. So I'm going to use it just to match up the side seam, and then I'm going to go ahead and draw a line to separate top and bottom portion of the back of the swimsuit. So here is the middle part of that swimsuit. I'm going to take that away, and then I'm going to add a 1/2 inch at the top part of the back of the swimsuit and at the bottom part of the top portion of the swimsuit. So here are the pattern pieces all done, and now it's time for me to cut it out on fabric. So the center front of my swimsuit is cut on the fold, and here are all the other pieces that I cut out as well. So now it's time for me to put the lining and the front portion of the swimsuit together on the self fabric. I went ahead and put my pattern pieces together because I'm going to do the top portion of the swimsuit first. So here I'm going to pin and sew it together. So here it is, and as you can see, the front of the swimsuit is looser and very wide. I'm going to place the lining onto the wrong side of the self fabric, making sure that the lining is going to be cleaned facing me. So here it is. As you can see, I'm going to go ahead and pin the bottom portion of the swimsuit together with the lining, and I'm going to start with the hem first of the bottom portion of the swimsuit. So I'm going to pin this into place so I can get ready to install my elastic. Now I wanted to have a more official look to my swimsuit. That's why I'm lining it with lining. You can skip this if you don't want to line your swimsuit. I just feel like it looks more professional when I see it fully lined. So here I'm just pinning the bottom of the swimsuit just to make sure that it stays in place when I'm sewing, because sometimes this fabric is very stretchy, and since I have a 4-way stretch lining, it tends to pull and reshape when it's being sewn. So this will help secure it in place when I'm placing the elastic. So right here I'm finished pinning the lining to the self fabric of the swimsuit, and I'm going to apply my elastic at the edge. So as you can see, it starts from one side. I'm going to apply the 1/4 inch elastic. This elastic is actually 3/8 of an inch, but I grabbed it by mistake, so you'll see it in the next clip, the 1/4 inch elastic. So I'm going to place it at the edge of the fabric. Now I am not perfect, so I'm allowing myself about a 1/16 of an inch from the edge to make sure that the elastic is nicely straight and placed where I want it. So it's going to have a little bit of excess fabric at the edge of the swimsuit when I'm finished. So I'm going to tack it down and now sew a zigzag stitch. I am putting a little bit slight tension while I sew it down in place, and as you can see, the zigzag stitch is neatly placed. I'm carefully guiding the elastic and holding it down while I'll sew. I'm not going to fully stretch it out to create some ruching, but I'm going to add some little bit of tension to tighten up when I'm stitching. So once I've done that, this is what it looks like with that 1/16 of an inch raw edge extended from the elastic. So as you can see, I did not pre-cut my elastic. I wanted it to be continued from the roll, and when I finished stitching this elastic down, that is when I cut out the elastic. So here it is. I'm going to go ahead now, trim away that 1/16 of an inch excess fabric just to make the edge very neat and clean. So I'm going to take my time with this. I would recommend you to do the same too if you are planning to do this. Now once I have the edge clean, this is what it looked like. Now I'm going to roll it onto the lining of the fabric, and then I'm going to stitch down a zigzag stitch to secure that in place. So here we are back at the sewing machine. I'm going to go ahead and create a stay stitch. I'm going to carefully guide the fabric underneath the stitches so that way it can remain nice and neat. Once again, I am going to create a little bit of tension, but not so much because I don't want to create ruching. So I'm guiding it from front to back as well. So as you can see, this is what it looks like, nice and clean on the outside edge and also stitched nicely on the inside. So here it is, fully done. And as you can see, the stitches are nicely done. So here's the face of the fabric and still allows me to stretch. And this is the inside portion of the swimsuit. Now I'm going to do the same thing all for the neckline and armhole. Now when you're trying to install the elastic for the armhole, you want to go ahead and do the same thing once again, but this time the elastic will be overlapped at the beginning. So here it is, I already zigzag stitch and I'm going to close it up. I'm going to lay the remaining of the elastic on top of where I started and then sew the zigzag stitch right on top. And again, you can see that I'm carefully pulling but not pulling so much. And I'm going to create a back stitch to make sure that it's secure in place. So this is what it looks like. And once again, my elastic is still continuing, and now I'm going to cut it off so that way this is the end of the elastic. Now this is the armhole fully complete. Now once again, I'm going to go and fold it over onto the lining and then zigzag stitch it after I clean the 1/16 of an inch edge off. Here I am stitching it, and once again I'm just going to tug on it very carefully, not hard. So this is what it looks like once it's complete. Here is the front and here's the back. So now it's time for me to put the bottom portions together, and I put the self fabric of the bottom portion together and the lining, and then now I'm going to do the same thing and place the lining right on the wrong side of the self fabric and then put it all together doing the same elastic technique. So here it is, all completed and done, and then at the top tip is going to be left raw, so I'm going to roll that back to apply the ring when it's time. At the top portion of the swimsuit, I'm going to clean it up with a overlock stitch at the edge of the hem, and then once I've done that, I'm going to roll it back onto the lining 5/8 of an inch to create a tunnel. This tunnel will be allowed for me to run it into the ring when it's time for installation. So here it is, all done and clean, and now I'm going to install the ring in the swimsuit. So the bottom portion, I went ahead and rolled it back, and I'm going to run the ring in that tunnel, and then I'm going to run the entire top portion of the swimsuit into the ring. And once I've done that, this is what it looks like. Here is the front. Here is what the back looked like, and this is what the lining looked like when I turn it inside out. Now my swimsuit is ready to wear. And here is the final look. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, hit that like button, and also be sure to subscribe so you can see more videos like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye guys.